Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
All right, you?
Yeah, very good.
Good. We've been asked to do some of these, so we thought we better do this. Angie and Mike chatting.
That's
And
it.
we did do this recording ages ago, but it failed to record, didn't it?
Yeah, the audio wasn't very good.
Anyway, so I thought it'd be nice to actually find out a little bit more about you. Lots of people know about me, so they don't really need to know about me. So do you want to kind of give people an overview of what you do, why you do it, what your involvement is in with the charity, and out there in the big widey world?
Okay, I can give that a go. So
because I know you're tired.
yeah, I feel really tired today. So I am a software developer by trade. I build software for all kinds of different organizations, mainly case management systems for the health industry. But we also do stock control systems and other bits of kind of IT software, really.
Which is how you and I really met, wasn't it?
It is,
indirectly,
exactly.
but yes, it was.
Pretty much, yes, because Somewhere House are one of my first customers for our green shoots, our addiction treatment management software.
Yeah, which I love.
Many years ago that was now.
I know. How many years ago was it?
I think it's getting on for about 8 years. It's a while. Yeah. So I remember meeting Will in a pub to talk about it. Yes. Most bizarre meeting place ever.
But I think I remember I met you first at another rehab. I was a trustee there for this charity, and that was where I first met you. I remember vividly where I met you, and you were in a room in the house.
Yes,
and that was how I met you. So yeah.
I think you're right. Right. So yeah, I've been running an IT business since about 2009, when I was 18, 19, something like that. And I've been doing that ever since. And then probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I got a bit burnt out with IT. It was the company was growing. We were doing a lot of IT support alongside software, which was very time consuming, incredibly time consuming, and meant that you were doing stuff, providing support through the day, and then during the night, effectively, you were doing a lot of updates to people's equipment. You were doing out of hours, emergency bits and pieces, software updates, all of that kind of stuff. So you just never really had a life. Became a bit burnt out with it. So I quite vividly remember traveling up to Cheltenham to go and look at a car, because I really wanted to buy a new car. And my dad came with me, and I was looking at this car, and my godparents actually live in Cheltenham, and we decided to pop in there for a cup of tea on the way back, or on the way there. I can't remember which way around it was. And we got chatting about how much cars cost and how much money you're going to lose, and all this kind of stuff.
Which I think I've had that conversation with you over and over again.
You may well have done, yeah, may well have done, as have other people. But yeah, so we were looking at this car. Went to see my godparents, and they own. I've always known that they own a few houses that they rent out, and they own the house next door to them. And the house next door to them, they rent the rooms out individually, it's known as a HMO. And they said, the amount of money that you're going to buy this car with, the cash you're going to buy this car with, could be part of a deposit to a house, and you could rent it out. So instead of you losing money, you could be earning money. And that kind of got me thinking. So on the journey home, I was looking at houses on Rightmove and all this, and I booked some viewings to go and look at other houses. And cut a bit of a long story short, I found a house that I thought would be suitable for renting the rooms out. Didn't really know what I was doing, but bought this house. Took ages for the legals to go through. I think it was about 9-10 months for this house to go through. It felt like a lifetime. And I bought this house. On the day that I got the keys, I went to Screwfix and I bought a brand new toolbox. And I walked into this house, and my toolbox down. Thought, right, what do I do now? What's the first thing to do? And I thought, well, I'm going to put a wall up there. I'm going to change that light fitting. Needs a new kitchen, needs a new bathroom, need 2 bathrooms really. All these things going in my head. And it was a fairly big 3-story house had 3 kitchens, had a kitchen on every floor. I think it had been run as like a bit of a bed and breakfast type of place for a while. And yeah, I sort of went to work, taking things apart and unscrewing things, and I ended up with this big pile of wood in this one room. I thought, what do I do with this now? I didn't have a car suitable for taking things to the tip. So I had to phone around and find someone to kind of pick the rubbish up. And that was my first insight to how much it costs to get rid of rubbish. And I've never forgotten that. And even to this day, rubbish is very expensive to get rid of properly and legally. And anyway, I ended up turning that house into a HMO, professionally licensed HMO, and rent the rooms out. And I did that. And I then once it was rented, my mortgage broker said to me, "Oh, you should remortgage that now because it's going to be worth more money." And I thought, well, how is this house now worth more money? It didn't really make any sense to me. So anyway, went about remortgaging it, and it was worth more money now because it had the house had a good income. Plus, I refurbished it, so an absolute fortune and nearly a year refurbishing it. But it was, it was all quite nice. Somewhere I'd be happy to live myself, which is a mantra that I sort of live by. So remortgaged it and was able to pull some money out. Basically, the deposit that I used to buy the house, I basically got back. So I thought I could go and do another one of these. So I started looking for another one, and I bought another one in Burnham to refurbish, which unfortunately wasn't as successful. There were a few challenges with that one. It cost a lot more money to refurbish, and this was a slightly different project. It was one where I was refurbishing it and was going to sell the property. So I spent a lot of money refurbishing it. Again, took a lot of time. Met various different tradespeople. Some were good, some were bad, some were expensive, some were cheap. Cheap's never always better. Sometimes you end up having to do things twice. But then once the house was done, it went on the market, and unfortunately it struggled to sell. A few other backstories there, but it struggled to sell, and it ended up selling for a loss. I ended up basically losing a lot of money. All the money that I'd made on the first one, I lost, plus a load more, sadly. So there's not always successes. You see lots of people out there talk about property being, basically like having
a good investment,
or like having a cash point. And unfortunately, that's not the case.
And I think it's a really important point, that, isn't it? Because so many people have this especially now with renting.
Yeah.
Because buy to let mortgages and renting, it doesn't all work out anymore like it used to.
No, it really doesn't. And
for tax purposes more than anything.
Well, tax purposes, interest rates, the sort of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So after I got over that
how long
difficult
did it take
period
you to get over that? How long did it take to pay that back?
To sort of get back to zero. That's a really good question. Probably about 3 years, I would say. Took a long time to kind of, basically get back to a point where the money I'd lost, I'd recovered.
Yeah.
It took a long time.
Which is a long time.
And very expensive. And, I think there's a lot of people where that would break them. And it was a really difficult period. But I managed to kind of get past it and ended up kind of going back to what I did the first time around. I managed to scrape together some money to buy another house in Weston that I turned into a HMO. And from there, it's kind of grown. The business has grown. It's now I tell everybody it's my hobby, which I know you're smiling there, but it is. It's my hobby.
It's his addiction.
Maybe it is, but I love buying houses that are run down and transforming them into properties that are for the modern generation.
Yeah.
They're well insulated, they're warm, they're dry, they're comfortable, they've got nice kitchens, they've got appliances built into them. You see on TV some of these TV programs, Slum Landlords, Nightmare Tenants. You look at the properties, and I'd be embarrassed to rent those properties out. I want properties that I would be happy to live in. I've been looking at properties that are ex rentals, or they're currently rented, that landlords are selling. And I think I wouldn't let my dog walk into this property.
Yeah, I hear you, but is that sometimes also about who's been living there as well? It's not just about, it's very easy to say that, but if you can't get access to the property, you've tried and tried and tried, and the tenant won't let you in, and they don't respect the property. I mean, I know you've experienced difficulties with some tenants, haven't you?
Yeah, you do get some tenants that are a bit challenging, and there are tenants out there that don't want their landlord coming in and putting a new kitchen in, or don't want them effectively interfering with what they deem is their property. But ultimately, by letting your landlord in to put a new kitchen in or to fix a leak in a bathroom or whatever, that's going to make that property better.
Yeah.
And one of the things I say to all my tenants is as soon as there's a problem, if there's a problem, contact us. Don't wait 3 weeks and then tell us. Tell us the moment it happens. Text us, call us, email us, whatever it is. And I remember a couple of years ago, 18 months probably, one of my tenants phoned us at about, 7 o'clock at night. And they had a toilet pipe that was outside of their building that was smelling. And it was smelling more than normal.
Yeah.
And they phoned us to let us know. And, if we were a letting agent, or if we had a letting agent manage the properties, that call would have gone to voicemail and be picked up the next day. But because we're, effectively a 24-hour operation, we took the call, phoned them back and said, is the toilet flushing okay? Is there a problem? And discover that actually, no, there was a blockage.
Yeah.
So went down there. We got there within about half an hour, pulled up some manhole covers, worked out that there was a blockage. The blockage wasn't actually on our property. It was in the main road. So we had to get the water board out. And the issue got resolved. We were still there at 11 o'clock at night, but it was resolved the same day. And I remember the tenants, they sent us an email a few days later saying, wow, thank you so much.
But I think you've got a really important point there, because that relationship with a tenant, from saying to them, please can you contact us if there's a problem immediately, to the ones that don't. And I think it's that in-betweeny bit, isn't it? Yes, great. I mean, we get calls on a Sunday morning and it's like, it's life. That's what it is. But the ones that leave it 3 or 4 weeks, and by the time there's poo floating down the street because there's a blockage, or
the toilet won't flush properly and it's leaking inside.
Yeah, we've had that as well.
And you think, that's just, why would anybody want? I had one actually yesterday. They messaged me to say that the washing machine in a communal kitchen, the washing machine's not working. It's not worked for 3 weeks. Why hasn't it been fixed? And I said, well, nobody's told us. Nobody's told us about this problem.
We get that,
I said, and I said to them, why didn't you report it? I sort of challenged them a bit, because I thought, you've obviously known that it's not worked for 3 weeks. Why haven't you told us? I'd rather have 6 reports that it's not working than none. And the guy, he apologized. He said, sorry, I thought so-and-so had told you. I said, no. If you find a problem, please just message us or email us or call us and let us know.
You've not had a washing machine for 3 weeks.
I wouldn't cope. I use the washing machine 2 or 3 times a week.
Well, and the rest for me. But I agree with you. So how have you been washing your clothes?
I don't know. But I just said to them, and anyway, we had someone go out yesterday and have a look, and actually we discovered it's not the washing machine, it's something else. But we had someone out the same day, the day it was reported. Now, we're not always going to be able to do that, but we'll try our best. And it annoys me when people don't. They're almost scared. And I remember watching or read, I can't remember now, I watched or read or heard, I can't remember, but this thing about how tenants is an old-fashioned word. And I agree with that, in that they're actually our customers. They're not tenants, they're customers. And ultimately, they're the ones that pay my bills, the mortgage, or all the costs. And we make a small profit, but we have to treat them as a customer in the same way that Tesco or Asda treat somebody that go into their shop, or you go into a hotel and there's a problem with the toilet, or
I hear you, but that is because we inspect our properties quite regularly for certain reasons, but your standards and my standards are very different to say somebody else's standards. So we recently, somebody took some photographs, and I looked at these photographs and I think, I would not live there like that. That's awful. That needs to be rectified. And it was done. It was done that week. We got a whole team down there. Everything was sorted. But it's like other people don't see that. So they wouldn't think, oh, the washing machine's broken, I better report it. Or it's a difficult relationship. Like you said, it is a customer relationship.
Yeah.
But you have to build a relationship with the people to get that.
You do. And I feel like I've got a good relationship with my customers, my tenants.
Loyalty comes to mind, I think.
I think so, yeah. And, I always say to them, if there's a problem, report it.
Yeah.
If you've got a question, ask us.
Yeah.
And I feel like, as a result, I get tenants that are generally fairly long term.
Yeah.
I've got some people that have been with me for 6 years, which is amazing. And they're almost people that we hear from the least. People that are there for 6 months because they're down here for working at Hinkley Point or a job or whatever. They're the ones that can be a little bit more challenging. But that's kind of part of it, because their life is they move around a lot.
Yeah.
Every property is a little bit different, so they're not sure how the oven works or how the microwave works or whatever. So that's why they ask more questions, which is absolutely fine, and that's what we're kind of here for.
Do you find, though, that with long-term clients that they end up customers, whatever you want to call them, that you don't necessarily do like a ongoing maintenance program for them, or do you keep that going?
So whenever I rent a property out, it generally had a big refurbishment anyway.
Yeah.
So it's been rewired, it's got new plumbing, new heating, bathroom, kitchen, the lot. So the kind of ongoing maintenance program at the moment is quite small. Right. I think probably in the next year we're going to get to a point where we've got properties that were done 5 years ago that are now going to need, things like redecorating. They might need ovens replacing or whatever.
Yeah, because it's like for me at home, I've got a little pot of paint in the dresser by the front door, and I go around and touch all the paint up.
Yeah.
So if there's a stubborn mark on the wall and I can't wash it off, because I'm a bit house proud like that, then I will clean it. But surely then there's a part of your properties that must need like touching up with paint and stuff like that. So how do you maintain that? How do you manage that?
So in a couple of ways, really. So probably once a year we do a big we go around every property and we do a more detailed inspection. So we inspect all the properties every 6 months anyway, but once a year we will do a sort of a more detailed inspection, and we'll look at it and go, right, that hallway, that needs redecorating because it's tired.
Scruffy,
we kind of book that in and that gets done. But it's more kind of individual people's flats or rooms. That's where it becomes a bit more difficult. And you're right, if someone is there long term, they've been there 5 or 6 years, it probably is due a redecoration. Yeah. And we'll have that conversation with them and we'll say, we'd like to redecorate. Is that okay? So far they've all said, no, we're fine, we're happy as it is. Which, depending on the individual, we're okay with. Because at the end of the day, it's their home. And I think that's some things that other landlords also forget, that these are people's homes. Would I like somebody coming into my home saying, we've not redecorated your kitchen for 5 years, I'm gonna send these people in that you don't know to paint your kitchen? Would I like that? I don't know.
I would.
It's hard to know.
Well, I would. I'm kind of looking at, and I think that's the difference between values, isn't it? It's about what's important to you, because some people that would be important to, and other people it wouldn't be. So therefore, if you said to me, "And you're right,"
my tea went down the wrong way.
I'm going to get somebody to come and decorate your kitchen. I'd be open arms. Please do. It saves me having to do it. But it's like, other people don't see that as a value. So how do you...
I think it's about relationships again. I think it's about having the relationship with the tenant, the customer, and asking them what they would like.
But if you're looking at something, you think, God, that's got to be done.
Yeah, then that's
what point do you do?
Yeah, that's a different conversation. I think if it's got to be done, it's got to be done. Yeah, if there was a leak, for example, God forbid there's a leak, but let's say there's a leak and the ceiling is all it's gone yellow because the water's stained it or whatever, or the electrics are hanging out because of the leak. That has to be done. Fundamentally, that has to be done. I know one of the things that the government are pushing for at the moment is the Rental Reform Act, or I think the Labour government have slightly changed the name. But of course they're going to make it their bit. But one of the things they're going to do is make it so that properties are, the sort of a habitable homes part of the bill is going to be a lot more around comfort.
Yeah.
And what does that actually mean and look like? They've already talked about bringing back the minimum EPC requirements, so the minimum level of energy performance that a rental property has. At the moment, I think it's an E or a D. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's now 2025, it's now 2030. Rental property now have to be an EPC of a C, which, whilst that doesn't sound like a big jump, actually that's massive when a lot of the housing stock in the UK is older than the 1950s, which is before we had things like cavity wall insulation, loft insulation's minimal. I mean, my parents' house was built in 2000. They have got so little loft insulation, it's unbelievable. And their house is a D, and that was built 24 years ago. So to expect a house that was in the 1900s or 1920s to be a C for rental purposes, that is one hell of a tough challenge to achieve. So
do they want all properties then to change to a C, even the ones that have been done in the current market under EPCs? They then want them to
so
again.
from 2030 they have to be a C to be legally able to be rented out.
Whilst you do your best as a landlord to actually insulate your people, I like to think that people would. Do you not think they're actually denying people a place to live? Because a lot of landlords, you can't achieve that on a 19. Well, look at this house here. If we were renting this house out, you are never going to get that here. It's impossible. It's a 360-year-old house.
Absolutely, and it's kind of changes the subject slightly, but I remember we were doing a property up. I think about 6 months ago, and a lady walked up to me and goes, "It's your fault." I said, "What do you mean it's my fault?" She goes, "It's your fault my son and daughter can't buy houses in our local area." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You're one of those landlords that buys all the houses and then rents them out so young people can't buy houses." And I said to her, I said, "Would you like to come in and have a look?" And she goes, "No, don't really near you." And anyway, she started walking off down the street. And I've told this story to a few people, but every house I buy has usually got something wrong with it.
Yeah.
So, and the one that this lady was shouting about was a fire damaged property. It was a block of 5 flats that were fire damaged. They had been banned by the council from being lived in, occupied. Yeah. And that was 5 homes, 5 properties that couldn't be lived in, purchased, rented, whatever you want to call it, in our local area, that my company effectively rescued. And I look back at every property we bought, and every property we've bought is a property that's either been at auction because it's got something wrong with it, or it's property that is got asbestos in it, or it's got damp issues, or the roof is falling in, or it's got no heating system, or the electrics don't work. There's always a major expensive problem with it. And quite often these houses have been on the market, sat on the market, trying to be sold for a while, and they haven't sold. And, that comes back to the EPC thing. We're going to have an issue, I think, in the next few years. Unless the way EPCs are done, we are going to have an issue whereby the number of rental properties available is going to decrease significantly. And I think one of the reasons the government want to do this is they do want to encourage people to buy their own home. However, you then got to look at the mortgage companies. The mortgage companies will give you a better rate if you buy a property that is rated from A to C on your EPC. So then you think, well, hang on a minute. We're now going to end up with this housing stock in this country that can't be rented. It's more expensive to own that kind of house than a new build. So does that mean we're going to end up with more empty properties? What does that do? What's the knock-on effect of that? Well, that means that surely rents are going to go up because there's more people after less houses. What's that going to do to property prices as well? Because surely if there's less houses that people can buy at an affordable price, surely that means prices are going to go up. And it's a really interesting thing when you look at this. And I know why the government are doing this. They want people's energy bills to be good. They want people to be informed about the property they're buying or renting and what it's going to cost to heat that house. But they're not thinking about the long term.
But that's that nanny state again, isn't it? It's almost like you've got to tell me as the government how I need to live my life and what, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you need to control that for me. Whereas natural fact, you're an adult. You're going to buy a house. You're an adult.
Exactly.
It's your responsibility. If you want to have an electricity bill that's £600 a month, carry on.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And a friend of mine, she's got a few houses that she rents out, and she's got one in Somerset it's an old, I think it's like an old barn. I'm not really sure what the construction is, but it's an old cottagey barn type thing. Solid walls, really thick solid walls, a bit like your house. And she had a quote to clad the outside of it to try and get the EPC rating out, which is really the only thing she can do. Yeah. She can't insulate it from the inside because it'll make the rooms too small, which will then become another issue. But she had a quote, and it was something like £50,000 to clad the outside of this house to try and get the EPC rating.
What would they clad it with?
It's like an insulated panel. I think it's like a basically it's insulation, and then like a plastic or a composite board on the outside. Yeah. So it looked nice. I mean, it changed the look of the property, which of course then you then got the conversation around, well, do you need planning permission for that? Do you need building control? Blah, blah, blah. But it was going to cost £50,000. She will never, ever see that money again.
No, she won't.
She can't buy a rent up because the EPC's a little bit better. So who's going to pay that £50,000? It's crazy. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. One of the other things that's in the rental reform bill, or the draft bill that's currently being talked about a lot, is about a landlord register. Now, if you're a HMO landlord in this country, you have to have your property on a register if you've got more than 5 tenants, 3 in some parts. But they want to create a register so that whether you're a landlord of one bedroom property or 100 properties, you have to be on a national register. And I see that as a good thing. I think that's a really positive thing. I'm not looking forward to what it's going to cost, because ultimately it's the landlords that are going to have to pay some kind of fee to be on this license and this register. But I see it as a good thing, because I think what it will do is it will make sure that, when people are looking at property, when people are going and inquiring about property they want to rent,
they can check the landlord.
They can check the landlord out. They know that landlord's license. They know that landlord's professional. There's so many examples I see on Facebook in particular where someone's advertised property that they either don't own, or it's just a complete scam, or all of these things. So I'm really in favour of that. I think that's a really good thing. So I kind of hope that does happen.
Wales do that already, don't they?
Yeah, Wales do. So in Wales they have what's called Rent Smart Wales, which is essentially it's a license or a register, for landlords. The one downside to the Welsh scheme is that you can't let your own property unless you've got the Rent Smart qualification, which apparently, I've not looked, I don't have property in Wales. Apparently it's quite complicated to get. So as a result, it means that you have to use a letting agent, which then kind of comes full circle in my mind of, well, what happens when there's a problem at 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday?
It's another cost.
It's a cost. But what happens at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night when there's a problem with the property? Tenants trying to get hold of the letting agent, and of course their office is closed. What happens? So I'm not in favour of that. I don't think that's a good. I think you need to allow private landlords that let their own properties out be able to do that in a good way. So yeah, we'll see what happens over the next few years.
Where would you see your kind of future in that sense? So you're doing the developing for the computers and all of that stuff, software and stuff. You're building an empire in
my hobby.
Your hobby, yeah. You're building your hobby. So do you see that just carrying on and being?
That's a really good question. I think the answer to that is yes. I really enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
I think every day this week I've worked like 16-hour days. I really love what I do, and anyone that says they don't enjoy their job, they should look for another job. I think. But I really enjoy what I do. I'd like to carry on developing property. I've transitioned a little bit this year, so instead of renting property out. We're buying and refurbishing and then selling.
That'll please that lady.
It will please that lady, yeah. I think. I'm not sure. But again, the properties that we've bought and are buying are ones that are either at auction, or we can't often buy properties that are in such poor condition they cannot be mortgaged. Roof collapsing, big damp issues, walls falling over, that kind of thing.
Full of rubbish.
I
never forget that place that you showed me the pictures of, and I'm thinking, where do you start?
Yeah. I have people that approach us to buy property where they literally just walk out the door with a suitcase. They leave all their belongings behind. We have that sometimes. And we work with people. If you want to sell your home confidentially, privately, without anybody knowing, and you're a bit embarrassed perhaps about the state of your property, we're happy to look at it. We're happy to look at everything. And I feel like we try to help people out in that sense. But yeah, that's what we've done this year is bought, refurbished, and then sold. So we've done some first time buyer apartments. We've done some of those, and we're just finishing off a bungalow, a 3-bedroom bungalow, which had a complete refurbishment. It's not recognisable to what it was. Completely overgrown forest. The neighbours didn't even know there was a property there. Which is hilarious because they'd been there 30 years and they didn't know there was a house there. That shows you how long it had been empty and unloved. And then so we'll see what happens. I think one of the big things is what's happening in the market. Interest rates are high, or in my view, they're high. My parents and you keep reminding me that interest rates were like 15 odd %.
That's correct.
Which is quite funny. But yeah, we'll see what happens. In terms of interest rates, they're slowly coming down. We had a reduction from the Bank of England a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully they'll come down a little bit more.
I don't know about you, but there's only 2 of our mortgages that have come down. Nobody else has come down.
Depends if you're on a variable rate or not. I've got a few on variable.
Yeah, we have.
So I'm pleased that they've come down. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, it depends on the market, what comes up for sale, what happens. But yeah, I do love that transformation of property.
And the IT stuff?
The IT stuff, there's some exciting things that's happening in the IT world at the moment. AI is a big thing. I think it's going to be very interesting over the rest of this decade, really, what's going to happen to everyday life with AI becoming part of it. We've all got Alexas and Siri and Google's, whatever it's called, that is on our phones, but it's about to all get major upgrades. And I think all of our devices, home appliances, are all going to do the same. I think it's a little bit scary, but I think it's also a bit exciting. So we'll see what happens. We can probably talk about AI and stuff on another podcast.
Defo. I'd like to anyway, so yeah, definitely. And any other things that excite you?
So also I'm involved with Summer House Somerset. I've been a trustee now. I think it must be getting on for about 6 years, something like that. I remember you approached me. I came to a cream tea event.
Did I approach you or nag you? Which one?
I think you cornered me is probably the word I would use. And you said, when are you going to come and be a trustee of my charity? And I think those are the words you used. And I said, oh, well, yeah, okay. And I'm still here now. And we have our moments, but it's all about making sure the charity runs well, and for the benefit of the people that it's designed for. At the end of the day, it's not about us. We do this podcast because we enjoy it, but it's also a way of kind of getting into people's homes that perhaps can't come to some of our events, and they can hear everyday people talk. And it's lovely having some of the guests, well, all of the guests we've had have been fantastic, and it's great where they get to share their lives, their stories, their ups, their downs, their own struggles, and to be able to kind of put this into, be able to beam, I suppose, it sounds like a really old-fashioned word, but beam into people's own living rooms and allow them to kind of hear that, I think is great. And that's what our coffee and chat events are, really, is a way of people getting out there, socialising, meeting people. So, yeah, I love being involved with the charity.
Good.
Yeah, it's good fun. And like I said, it has its challenges, but yeah, it's all good.
And anything else? Anything else in the?
Oh, I don't know. There's always ideas. There's always things to do. Right now, I feel absolutely knackered and need a holiday.
Actually, you probably do need a holiday. When did you last go away? Was it when we went to Ibiza?
Yeah, I went to Ibiza for about 48 hours. I'm not sure I'd call that a holiday, really.
No.
It's just a little trip.
It was busy.
Yeah, so I've got a holiday at the end of September. So
where are you going?
I'm going to Dubai. So yeah,
you like that there?
I love Dubai. Yeah, it's one of my favorite places. I don't know why. It's lots of people. I think it's a love-hate place. I love it because I think the service there is really good.
Yeah.
You go into the hotel and then you can have great food, great service. You can either choose to sit and do nothing for a week, or you can go and explore and look at what's around. So yeah, going to do that, and then we'll see what else the rest of the year brings.
Should we call it a day there?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks very much.